On this week's Carrier Wrap, we talk with Bill Ho from 556 Ventures about some of the recent news from Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. Well, thanks for joining us in this week's Carrier Wrap. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. And this week we are joined by Bill Ho, who is an industry analyst at 556 Ventures, to talk about the telecom market. So, hey, Bill, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Always happy to be here.
And nice shirt, by the way. I can see it's a little bit green there. I couldn't really tell initially, but it looks like a little green. I think I got my green on as well. As we mentioned earlier, a little bit of, I guess we're a little past St. Patrick's Day, but that's okay. We're still in the month of March. That's okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I was just thinking about Hawaiian Irish viewers. So,
there
are a lot of Hawaiian Irish ancestry out there in Honolulu and the outlying islands. So I thought I'd pay homage to them.
A good shout out, yes. And it could be a nice segue into later on in the show, a little teaser for everybody. We might be talking a bit about Scotch as well. So stay tuned for that. So we'll be really targeting in on the Scotch, Irish, I guess it's not really Irish, and then Hawaiian. So yeah, make sure you get those two straight. Don't confuse those. So anyway, okay. So let's first start off with some carrier news for this week. So one thing, I guess we've got a long list of things to discuss. So I think one of the first ones we want to tackle is this week, Apple had its latest little event, and they announced a new iPhone. And that kind of segues well into kind of, I guess, over the past couple of months, the first quarter really has been pretty heavy in terms of carriers focusing a lot on devices. I mean, it's been, there has been some rate plan changes. I think we've talked in the past about the unlimited data moves that have been kind of coming out, some promotions there. But it really seems like the carriers have been focused a lot over the past couple of months on the devices, and mostly on the buy one, get one offers. It seems like, with the Samsung Galaxy that came out a couple of weeks ago, that was a big push for that. It was by a lot of carriers, was the buy one, get one offer. Again, with the iPhone, that's been coming out as well too. Again, with the new iPhone coming out, we'll see what they do to promote that. But I guess what's been your general view of kind of that push towards the device side of things for operators who have traditionally, it's mostly been in the past a lot more rate plans and things like that, but it seems like it's been a big focus in Q1 here on kind of the BOGO offers. What's your view on how it's kind of gone?
So Q1 has been traditionally kind of trying to rejoin the momentum of Q4.
Yeah.
So if you remember why BOGO and the S7 so recently in recent memory is simply because it was announced at Mobile World Congress. Yeah. So that was in February. It became available in March, and I have to think that Samsung has something to do with trying to drive volume when it's hot and when it's in the news, and ahead of the Apple announcement, which was yesterday. So I think that there's a Samsung marketing element to it. If we remember those people who kind of follow the device rollout, there was only T-Mobile and AT&T doing buy one, get one free on the S7.
Yeah.
And then Sprint and Verizon joined. So it's kind of like device parity. One anecdote is I contacted the T-Mobile and asked when their offer ends, and they said they ran out. So it was a limited time promotion, and as supply lasts, and they ran out as of yesterday. The email went, so they're not participating in BOGO anymore, but others are. I mean, I think the AT&T and Verizon have the buying power and the deep pockets to buy a lot of volume on the S7. So at least for the purpose of BOGO, they ran out. And in addition to BOGO, if you read the fine print, it's add additional lines.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps Q1 in driving additional gross adds, whether it's a switching or whether it's upselling an existing customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you're right I with the Samsung connection there, because I think with their S6 model that came out last year, it seemed, and the talk was that maybe it didn't do as well as everyone was hoping it would do. And it did seem like towards the end of its life cycle that there were a lot of promotions around the S6, perhaps for carriers to drive whatever inventory they had left ahead of the S7 launch. And so I remember late last year seeing a lot of, I think we discussed as well, a lot of S6 promotions that were going on, carriers trying to get rid of them. I know T-Mobile at one point had a promotion where they were basically giving a free lease on the device, for an 18-month lease on it for a limited time as well. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Samsung perhaps was a bit They didn't want to get stuck again with something that looked like it wasn't doing well. And so, yeah, a lot of promotions around the launch, again, ahead of the Apple launch as well. I think you're right. That Samsung connection probably has a lot to do with why carriers went with that BOGO promotion. And then, like you said, too, they were all tied to two new lines of service, which, keeping that momentum going from Q4 is key for these operators. And it does seem like, at least, here we are almost through all of Q1, that perhaps overall additions might be a little slower than perhaps last year. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. I think T-Mobile, there's been talk that they're maybe not going to do quite as well as last year. And they seem to be kind of like the guiding light when it comes to overall growth. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, interesting, take on how everybody's doing right now.
Yeah, I guess from the rate plans, we'll talk about that later. But from the handset, S7 isn't a whole lot in terms of form factor different from the S6.
True.
I think there's some waterproofness to it. And I guess there's, of all things, my son watched the Apple webcast and said, there's nothing new there. So, from the form factor and innovation aspect of it, I think things are slowing and maturing. The S6 is a good slab anyway. S7 is waterproof. They've got new innards, new processors, new cameras, new screens, whatever the case may be, extending Samsung Pay. So I think from the innovation aspect of it, it's either plateauing or whatever the case may be. And that's evidence in the iPhone SE, right? So same form factor, better innards, and it meets a niche market. It's a lower price point, maybe a more price sensitive audience, but at the same time, the people who don't want the bigger 6 and 6S. So, and not a whole lot, but it's evolutionary versus revolutionary.
Yeah. And I think it was good too, because I think Apple is going to a market, because again, all the phones are getting bigger and bigger. We've all, obviously Apple went with a bigger form factor. Samsung has stayed with a bigger form factor. But I think that kind of smaller, again, people might not want the big 5-6-inch screens anymore. I think Apple was pretty smart to kind of go back to that 4-inch screen that they had with the 5S and 4S models, but pack it with the latest features to kind of make it seem like it wasn't a down market device. It's a small form factor, but it has all the features of the bigger device. So it seemed like a great way for them to go after, perhaps, like you're saying, a less expensive market, but not cheapen the brand. Like, when they launched their 5C model, it was somewhat of a plastic model. It didn't do great. Perhaps it was seen as being not quite up to Apple standards. It seems like with this new SE model that they've kind of, kept the quality aspect of it, a little smaller screen, still a lot of features, but able to kind of come in at a lower price point. So it'll be interesting to see how carriers respond. I haven't seen a lot of carrier activity yet, what they're going to do to promote it, but it will be interesting to see how they play that new device.
I think Verizon was the first one to advertise heavily that they're carrying the SE. So it goes down to will it take some thunder from the S7? So Apple is a very, very successful company. They may or may not have to do BOGOs, but it's up to the carriers. Competition relative to the previous years in terms of handset market has increased.
Yeah.
So Samsung has kind of like bet its strategy in the beginning of the year. Apple's towards the fall, right? The fall of 16. We expect a lot more competition. So I think the S7 is to grab the loyalists, and it will continue. It'll probably get promoted continuously. But it'll be interesting as we go into fall, see what happens. Is there going to be a BOGO with Apple and eat in on carrier margins or Apple margins?
Yeah.
That's kind of the most interesting thing, because a couple of years ago, if you remember, I think T-Mobile said that it was a huge switching opportunity whenever the iPhone launches. So again, looking forward to the fall, whether it's September, October, what promotions will be around there. And if we can segue to your former colleague, Colin Gibbs, wrote an article concerning handset vendors doing their own promotions because they can't count on carriers to drive it, because the upgrade rate from the carrier viewpoint has lessened.
Yeah. And again, with Apple, I know Apple has kind of gone, they went direct sales with a payment program last year with the S6 or 6S device. And so, they were kind of, again, rolling out that payment thing again with with the new phone as well. So they're not relying strictly on the carriers anymore. They're kind of going out themselves. And even Samsung with their own marketing of the S7 device, they've gone pretty aggressive. They have in the past as well, but they're going really aggressive, bringing a lot of celebrities in now with the commercials for the S7s. And a lot of them, aren't tied directly to a carrier. They're just them promoting the waterproofness of the device and things like that. Right. So it does seem like they are trying to, again, not rely strictly on operators. And that's kind of the new model going forward for most of these guys.
So I think what this points out, if it does happen, is the divergent strategies of carriers versus handset vendors, right? So handset vendors want to drive volume, and given the EIP and everybody paying full price without subsidy, it means that they're not seeing the volume of old, and so they have to stimulate their own way, right? So carriers are listening to the financial community. Any subsidy is going to eat in on their margin, so why do it? And they're seeing, and really, I think it's come down to reality is that people are realizing that, this is a huge hit, $650, $700 for a handset, and so the reluctance to upgrade is lessened relative to when things were $149, $199. So it's an interesting shift of what will happen if it does come to fruition, where handset vendors will make their own subsidy or promotions to kind of help stimulate their own volumes.
Yeah, good point. Well, maybe I guess on the promotional front, it did seem like also Q1 there was a lot of talk around the whole switching thing, where operators were willing to pay customers up to $650 to switch, and that's been kind of an ongoing promotion over the past year or two as well. It did seem like more recently, I think Verizon got on board with it. AT&T kind of promoted a little bit more as well too. I guess what's your take on that? Because that does seem like that is again kind of throwing cash on the table basically to get customers, and with operators still looking to generate some growth. If you can eliminate those barriers to customer switching, another way to do it like that seems like a good way to do it. Again, it's mostly just cash up front, which is I guess one way just to kind of take an initial hit. That's kind of the way I guess device subsidies were in the past. You took that initial hit, and then you made your money on the longer term of it. I guess what you've got, how that's been, I guess, progressing and the movement in those terms.
I think the fact that everybody, 650 is table stakes. So if you saw AT&T and Verizon do it, coming last, it kind of minimizes the exit, other than just plans that were really, really popular and low price. So the price sensitive people are going to go anyway. Yeah, promotions like T-Mobile's $150 for unlimited for 4 lines. So those guys are going to go Sprint with their 50% off, whatever, iPhone Forever and such. So those people are going to go, and I think that it's a strategic view from, at least from the big guys, to say we want profitable revenue. We want profitable, and it's mentioned many times that they're not going to go and spend exuberant money just to acquire gross ads, but they still have to do it to offset any losses. But at the same time, they focus on margin.
It does seem like it is a bit of a reluctance to do this. Whenever they roll it out, they do seem like they promote it pretty heavily to an extent, but it does seem like there's a bit of a reluctance. I know, like whenever there's an analyst conference and the carriers talk about these promotions, they tend to downplay how much of an impact it's having. They try to make it seem like they're not spending a lot of money on these things, but they do have to have them out there. It has to be an option, or customers will think that that their operators are falling behind, basically. And if they start losing numbers, that hurts in the bottom line as well. So it does seem like they are somewhat, not forced, but they're doing these things, and a bit reluctantly to do them at times, it seems. But
and it also depends on the carrier. So that 650 is I guess doled out in different fashions. Some carriers give you a prepaid card after so many months, so that you don't just take it and leave, and some give it to you in billing credits, and that goes the same for BOGOs, right? So I think T-Mobile specifically said we're going to give it to you a prepaid card in one lump sum after so many months. So unlike the other guys who give it to you in bill credits. So it's a different strategy. It's a different way of not getting burnt, basically. And
I think for the most part too, I'm guessing it's pretty rare that they actually pay out $650 for a customer, because mostly it's tied to however much money is left on a device payment plan or on an ETF. And the customer also has to trade in their phone, their old phone as well. So the operator that they're coming to, who is paying out the money, is likely paying out, again, a lower amount, because the customer's probably been with their old carrier for maybe a year or so, who knows. So maybe it's half of what the whole device is valued at. And then with the trade-in, the carrier can then turn around and sell that phone again. And so they're cutting most of their losses. It seems that way. So yeah, I mean, so while it might be $650 in the big numbers, it's pretty rare. I'm guessing that they're paying out that much money per sub ad.
Yeah. I think it's certainly market positioning. It's customer friendliness that everybody's playing up. So when you go into Q1, it'll be interesting to see who wins, who loses. I think initially a lot have been written by the financial community that they expect T-Mobile to do well. In the Q4 earnings call, T-Mobile said that they're positive and they're doing well. So you can all expect those numbers to be pretty good, I guess. Yeah,
that's what it seems like at this point. Yeah, I'm guessing they'll still have a good, strong quarter, and we'll get to kind of sprint a little bit later too. But maybe let's touch on, speaking about T-Mobile. They came out, I think it was last week, talking about with their Binge On product. They've now added some Google services as well as some other content providers as well. But the big one was kind of, I guess, YouTube is now available as part of the Binge On platform. But to kind of, I guess, garner that support from Google, T-Mobile had to, I guess, give up some control, or at least allow Google now to control the streaming quality of the service, which was interesting. Again, it kind of seems to defeat a bit of the purpose of what Binge On brings. But I guess we'll see how that all kind of moves going forward. But I guess, what was your general view of kind of the importance of, I guess, of Binge On, or T-Mobile getting YouTube on board, and the changes perhaps they had to make to kind of make that work?
So I think from the standpoint of YouTube is one of the biggest content destinations on mobile devices, let alone on desktop. So from that standpoint, it was important that YouTube join, and if they were going to not have YouTube, then the network will not suffer, but will be taxed. And the fact that they have it on, and then give the ability for content providers to opt to say, we don't want our stuff, we want the maximum capability, like 4K stuff on tablets. They do that, and I think in the background, it's setting the stage for saying, hey, network neutrality discussion, go away. We're doing all the right things here to kind of mitigate and give people a choice, whether the choice is from the customers or the content providers. So they're not discriminating; they're giving choice to everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was totally a play to kind of appease the net neutrality, open internet rule issue. Obviously, Google had come out pretty adamant that they weren't in favor of what the Binge On thing was doing. They were claiming net neutrality issues. Google is a fairly large company, so they get a lot of attention from regulators. So yeah, I think what T-Mobile did here did seem to be a smart move, just in terms of kind of downplaying the issues that they continue to kind of have around this, around Binge On in terms of net neutrality complaints. So yeah, I think it was mostly had to do with that. And again, it will be interesting to see how how the other content providers, if they do choose to kind of control their own content as opposed to letting T-Mobile do it, what that does, because consumers won't in turn then be able to really garner that free streaming. If a content provider doesn't want their content streamed at a lower quality, then the consumer themselves aren't getting the free streaming either. And so T-Mobile seems like they're going to have to walk a pretty thin line to make sure that consumers are made aware of what's happening out there. It's going to be a tricky part for them to kind of have to, I guess, play both sides and make sure everybody's on the same page with what's happening.
Yeah, I think there's also a network story. So Binge On, in my view, is more of a network saving story. And in that press release, they talk about 57 petabytes going through and either being saved or whatever the case may be. And I think from the, I guess, positioning of Binge On vis-a-vis network story for, let's say, investors, that number will, or any tracking of the network story will continue in going forward, just to kind of prove that we did the right thing.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. But yeah, again, interesting to see they got YouTube on there now, so that should appease, at least from the consumer side of things. We'll see how that moves. Another topic, and an awful segue, is to look at now at Verizon. There's been talk lately about them giving up extra data to some of their Fios customers, an attempt to kind of tie their wireless and wireline services together. It did seem like it was a bit of a counter to what AT&T has been doing and trying to integrate their platform more, with the DirecTV customers able to sign up for unlimited data services. So it seems like it was kind of an initial push by Verizon to kind of get on board with that, bringing the whole ecosystem together a bit more by tying, maybe tying customers together. Again, maybe not as compelling as what unlimited data seems to offer to consumers, but at least a move. It seems like at least a move by Verizon to kind of acknowledge that this might be a way they might need to go in the future to kind of make sure that their whole operation is showing some growth and some success.
Yeah. So to recap, the unlimited offering from AT&T was tied to DirecTV, either existing sub or a new sub, and that's how you can get it. The price point was great, $180 for 4 lines. That's a very, very good price point on a pretty good network, AT&T network, and that's kind of a platform to kind of push video. So remember that video content announcement that they're going to have different flavors of video, what's on the smartphone, free, and the full boat on desktop as well, and TV. So that's kind of setting up that platform for those offerings within the AT loyal base, which also is a growth and retention story. I think it's more of a retention story. Yeah. Well, and similarly, it's kind of the same playbook at Verizon, right? You have loyal Fios customers who like the speed relative to the cable companies. They are competitors in the wireless side, but they're not really competitors in the landline space, right? So again, I think it's a retention story. Can't do unlimited. You just got to give more data. I think as Roger Edner observed, that unlimited really means 22 gig. Yeah. Which if you read the terms for those people who are unlimited, that 22 is kind of the magic number that until something happens, or what happens. But just give more data away, to placate the Verizon Wireless faithful who are also the Fios users. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you're right, exactly right when it comes to like Verizon, this being a retention effort for them, because they have said over and over again that they're not going to go unlimited data. They're not going to go to that marketing push. So instead, they just keep kind of rolling out little extra bits of data here and there for customers. I know with their Go 90 service, their video service, I think they've more recently kind of zero rated it. But initially, they were, I saw the promotion myself where they were saying that, if you download the Go 90 app, we'll give you 2 gigabytes of extra data a month. So, a kind of promotion to kind of, hey, try this thing out. Here's some extra data in case you want to use it. And as a personal anecdote as well, which I know we discussed this earlier, and I kind of mentioned, I think, on YouTube or on Twitter at one point too. But I had recently, a few months ago, I had done a device trade-in with Verizon, and it had been several months since I had heard from them. And so there was a big issue. So I called them up to kind of find out what was going on. I called the woman up. She seemed very helpful, was going through the process, told me what happened. I said, great, that sounds good. She said, you'll see, you see your rebates within a week. It'll be on your bill. I said, great, sounds good, thanks so much. A week and a half later, it still hadn't shown up yet. So I called Verizon back, go through the whole thing again, like this whole process yet again with what I had already done with this woman. And, halfway through it, I'm like, I don't understand why I'm having to give you all this information again, because I talked to a woman last week there and we did this whole thing. So, was she an employee of yours? Was I talking to a wrong person? Was she lying to me? I couldn't figure out why I was having to do this all again. And she sent me to somebody else. And so, I was on the phone with Verizon for quite some time working through the system. I will say at the very end of it, I talked with somebody who made it all happen immediately. He got it all done on the phone, which I don't know why they couldn't do it to begin with, but that's a different story. But at the end of my call with him, right before I hung up, he was like, oh, wait a second. I had something pop up on my screen with you saying that since you're, a great customer, whatever you want to be, we can offer you 12 extra gigabytes of data per month for free. And so I'm currently on a plan where I've got, 18 gigabytes of data that I share with some other lines. And he was like, since you're on this certain plan, we can give you 12 extra gigabytes for free a month. Would you like that? And, I'm like, it makes no sense, but sure. Why would I not want that? But right. Anyway, it just kind of showed that, Verizon seems to be willing to throw around some extra data to customers, whether it's I'm guessing more of a retention issue, because again, I'm guessing they took from my conversation that I was not very happy with how things were going. So perhaps as a retention thing to say, hey, maybe it was a bad situation, but here's some extra data to keep you on board. So interesting that it does seem like they are willing to throw out data to retain customers, not go completely unlimited, but to at least throw some data around to keep people on board. So I think the other dimension of your story is that it's easier to throw data than to give money discount,
Yes.
right? Because at the end of the day, you want to preserve ARPU.
Yes. And
So
I think they probably looked at my account and saw that, most month I don't use the whole data allotment anyway. And so they're saying, hey, we can give you, let you think you're getting 12 extra gigabytes a month. You're never going to use it anyway. So what do we care? It's just going to be on your thing, and it's gone after a month anyway. So I think for them, it's a very low, there's low overhead to that. I mean, most customers aren't going to be using, 30 gigabytes of data a month. So I think for them, they found it was probably a safe way to do it. And again, cheaper way to do it too. They're not throwing money out there. It's just giving away something that has a perceived value, but no real value if it's not tapped into. So
yeah, I think from a mainstream audience who may use a lot more, who might have teenage kids, that might be valuable. But I think the key is don't give money back. I mean, don't deduct from the bill.
Yeah, you're right. No, exactly. You want to keep those ARPU numbers up. You're right. I mean, giving out data it doesn't really show up most of the time on the bottom line. So yeah, you're right. That's exactly what they're doing. So it's smart. Hey, good move by Verizon. So one final topic.
That's across the board playbook.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So interesting there. Well, maybe one final topic before we get to the real important stuff. Let's talk a bit about Sprint now. And I think you had mentioned, I think, in kind of some notes that we want to talk about was Sprint has obviously kind of pushing their new network agenda, trying to tout what they've been doing. And, they've had John Saw do a lot of blog posts on kind of how they've been progressing and touting whenever they do well in a survey. And, but it has been a bit of a market by market situation. And that to me has, at least from a media perspective, has kind of downplayed it a bit of what they've been doing, because it does seem like it's hard to kind of, it seems to me it's hard to kind of, promote a nationwide operation. In fact, all you're doing is kind of increasing capacity in certain markets, not the whole area. So I guess what's been your general view of how Sprint has been rebranding itself kind of in this new age that they're trying to get their network story out there?
Yeah. So from the standpoint of Sprint, it's I think T-Mobile's farther along. I'll add some commentary there.
Sure.
From the standpoint of Sprint, I mean, they've got limited. They're in the financial straits. Yeah. They don't have the deep pockets to go and do a full capital program to cover 300+ million pops on their own organically.
Yeah.
LTE, they've got challenges. They're trying to save money on backhaul, to densify. And it goes down to kind of where the people are, where the payers are. They're not in the rural areas. You got to densify cities, right? A la Chicago, which has been kind of their flagship story. Mm-hmm. So a market by market in big markets is really where they're playing, and to kind of concentrate their sales and marketing efforts and probably their network story in those markets to get local wins is I'm guessing that's kind of the play.
I guess as you view that, though, I mean, how effective is that? Because I think historically we've seen a lot of operators when they've rolled out new services, for instance, some do take a market by market approach with these things. Others wait till they do it nationwide. I mean, has that type of market by market approach been effective? I mean, again, maybe that's all they can do, and they're just trying to make the best of a bad situation. But do you feel that that's been an effective way to do things? Because it does seem like it limits your ability to kind of market these advances nationwide. Because if you promote, hey, we've got this fast network, and then the small print you've got in Chicago only, it would seem like a bit of a bad taste in the consumer's mouth. What's your view on how they've been able to do that?
Yeah, I think that if you look at probably the Chicago playbook, they're improving their network. They're investing in local marketing that rather than national marketing. And I think that they've mentioned that as well, is that they are kind of limiting their marketing efforts and just spending more wisely, which I equate to the markets that they're improving both on a network basis. And once they improve that, whether it's speed or reliability, bolstered by RootMetrics reports, then they'll just promote the hell out of that and probably see the wins there too. And then right now it'll be, we're just as good as everybody else. And so they've been playing that speed card in marketing and using RootMetrics and, maybe third parties from Nielsen.
Nielsen and things like that. Yeah.
So it's not a bad strategy. It's just that, from a macro view, if Verizon says, the map, or AT&T says, North America, it's a more compelling story for those people, particularly enterprise and those people who travel all the time.
Yeah.
If you're, just go back to, you remember the Metro PCS and the Leap days where those guys just concentrate, and, people don't leave those areas. And if they go, they'll probably go to a major area. So it's no skin off my nose in I'll save 15 to $20 extra a month. I'll deal with that. And so,
that's a good point.
It's there.
Yeah, that's a good point with the Leap model. I mean, I remember when Leap was doing their market by market thing that they were doing, and when they first rolled out roaming between some of their markets, like you could be a Leap customer and take your phone to another market and use it. You couldn't use it in between the markets, but when you got there, I mean, that was a big story for them. So you're right. You're right. It is kind of that really localized focus is kind of, you're right. That's kind of what Sprint, and obviously with the 2.5 spectrum being key to their speed advantages. Again, it's not great propagation there anyway. So they really are focusing on that hyper local downtown area market. And again, some markets play well with that. And obviously Chicago, New York at some point will too. So it does seem to make sense for them to do it.
And I think that they're also, if people are noticing that they're turning up the marketing on network, on speed particularly, because that's where the advantage is.
Yeah.
They had the announcement that the S7 hit 300 meg in the lab. I don't know if it's lab or real world.
Environment, yeah.
But, it's 3-carrier aggregation that we've been waiting for many, many years. Right? 3-carrier aggregation, I don't know if it's fully baked, but, that we all know that Sprint has that potential for speed, and that could be the differentiator. And they're finally trying to do it probably in 16 and kind of burnish their network story and kind of change the whole notion that Sprint's network is not good, at least in specific markets. So they're trying to change that. And I think T-Mobile is trying to do that right now. They in the last year and a half, they've been saying we're as good as Verizon. They're attacking Verizon. They're going after Verizon users. A lot of social networking campaign. Remember that ball commercial that they made fun of? Verizon's ball. Everybody made their own. So from the standpoint of social media, they have this ball buster challenge where they go to different areas of the country. And then they also have a social media campaign, I think on Twitter, it's called T-Mobile in the Wild. Yep. So all that suggests that they are going into traditionally where people think that they're weak, let's say rural areas, showing that they are operating well. So they're undergoing this campaign to say our network is good, and they'll continue that. And it's smart to do. Yeah, and again, I think even Verizon has kind of somewhat countered as well. I think over this past weekend, Verizon came out with some new commercials. Ricky Gervais, and they're kind of talking about downplaying Sprint's claims and bolstering Verizon's claims. So yeah, it does seem like obviously the other operators are taking notice perhaps of what Sprint's doing, and maybe that does kind of, I guess, show that maybe Sprint is making a bit of an impact. I mean, if the operators are responding, the others are responding, maybe they need to respond because maybe Sprint is maybe gaining some mind share, at least in some of these bigger markets, that they are a faster network out there. So the interesting thing is interesting that you also bring up Verizon. Verizon has been in the past ignoring like T-Mobile, their flies. We're not, and Sprint as well.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is that talking to one of their VPs of communications, he says, we're not going to take it. Remember the duck commercial that goes up against T-Mobile, and the ball commercial? And now against Sprint with Ricky Gervais, Americans, I wonder if Americans know who he is. But at the same time, it'd be better if you have James Condon or Gordon.
Yes.
From the standpoint, it's a shift in Verizon marketing. They're going back and saying, we're not taking it. So it suggests that either they can't take it, or they've been basically plucked from T-Mobile and Sprint with their promotions, and they have to do something to respond.
Yeah.
So that's interesting marketing and advertising switch.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch that play out. Well, again, a lot of news has happened over the past couple of weeks here in the wireless space. Definitely appreciate the great insight on that topic. But more importantly, I know we've discussed and talked about this, I think, our last time we spoke as well. We are, casual amateur. I'm not sure how I called it. Casual amateur Scotch drinkers. I know we've been exchanging messages about this recently. You've done quite well, it sounds like, in picking up new brands and new bottles out there. And so we're hoping, again, maybe just do a quick little rundown of what we're drinking today in terms of Scotch. And so perhaps you would like to show off perhaps a bottle that you are enjoying during today.
So I have to say that Dan Meyer was instrumental in me getting into. You're responsible, actually. Probably my wife would say,
well,
you're getting into that, and I have to point to Dan Meyer. So Dan Meyer has always been probably obviously a longer Scotch drinker than I have, but he's given me some brands, and I've gone with it, and I've also explored my own.
You've run with it, that's for sure. You've run with it.
I have Oban. Oops.
There we go.
Oban 14.
I like to pronounce it Oban, but we'll say Oban is fine. So go ahead.
It's Oban, and it's from the West Highland part of Scotland. It's by the water, and look at the nice color. It's supposed, I don't know if they throw caramel in there, but it's owned by Diageo. I think last time we drank, and Aberfeldy. I drank Aberfeldy. Yep. It was owned by Dewar's.
Yeah,
is it's a big brand. So from a distribution standpoint, it's probably for us here in the U.S. Pretty good. So here is my Oban that I'm drinking in the morning or afternoon. I don't know. Depends on
where for you. You're okay. We're good. So what is your take on the flavor of it? How do you feel about it?
I like it because what I notice is that it's 43% by volume. I mean, any other things greater than 40% in my stock, in my collection, I've had to cut it with a little water just to kind of open it up. And in some are pretty strong. This, for people who are true Scotch drinkers, you drink it neat, and it's very good. It's smooth. It's citrusy. It's a little spicy.
No, I agree. I got to say that I am a fan of that. I don't have any right now in my stock, which we discussed. I'm a little disappointed in myself in not having it, but I had it in the past. I would agree. It's a very easy drinking. I don't want to say too easy drinking, but it is a bit of an easy drinking Scotch. And we had someone jump on there. But again, it's a very, I mean, it's great to have. You should have that in your collection. It's not quite the Glenlivet. It's not quite the traditional one you're going to have all the time, which is nice. It's a little different. So I definitely recommend that one. Highly recommend that one for people as well. For myself, I am drinking, as I mentioned, a Glenlivet. This time I've got the French Oak Reserve 15 right here, as you can see there, which is a very nice.
If viewers note, it must be pretty good because it's towards the bottom of the bottle.
I would like to say I've had this for a long time, but it's not true. It's just been a rough week. So, but anyway, yes, it's a very I mean, a Glenlivet in general is a fairly easy drinking wine. I usually can drink a Glenlivet without drink it neat. This one has a little bit of different ending to it, a little finishing to it, it's a little different, but still smooth. I mean, it's got, again, I'm not sure what the French Oak Reserve part of it does exactly, but it does seem to give it a little more, I don't want to say spice, but a little something extra at the end, but it's not overpowering, which is nice. I mean, it's not something that you're going to drink and then at the end of it kind of be like, whoa, that kind of hit me. It's still smooth enough that you can drink it neat and not need anything else with it. But it's a little bit different from a regular Glenlivet. It's got a little smoother initial part of it with a little kick at the end, which I think is nice. So again, I think Glenlivet, again, is a pretty big brand. So most people, you can find it in most stores. The French Oak Reserve is a little bit, I think, harder to find, not difficult to find, but it might be a little more difficult to find. But I would say if you do, happen to see a bottle of it on the shelf, want something a little different from a regular Glenlivet, a good way to go as well. Again, not something you're going to always have around, but it's kind of nice to have as well. So
not to get geeky about it, but most of the time, a lot of Scotch single malt Scotch producers get American bourbon oak as kind of oak. Yep. And sometimes it's kind of used with bourbon already previously aged in it. And so French oak is something else. And, I haven't tried any French oak to make any determination, but, that's why I think it's French oak, because normally it's American oak.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it has a little bit of, I think it might be like an old sherry casket or something that they might use for it. But again, it's a very good finish to it. So again, definitely recommend it if you can see it. Again, it's a 40% by alcohol by volume, so it's not super strong. But again, it's something a little different. It's got good color to it. Again, I'm not sure, again, on the caramel front, if they add much to it. It might be a little bit. I think I've had some clearer ones out there, but but again, it's a good flavor. So
that's right. So to remind the viewers, you previously had Glenfiddich.
Glenfiddich.
And I assume that bottle is emptied by now.
Long gone. Yes, long gone. Yeah. So unfortunately, my liver has had to process that one. But anyway, yes. Is it liver or kidney? I always forget. Which one does? Liver. Okay. Yeah, that's the one. So anyway, well, great. It's always good to catch up on the Scotch talk and also on the Carrier talk. I don't think I actually hear. Let me just put my words on. Yeah, a little there. Again, very good drinking. Again, we should be a little afternoon here in my time, maybe not, but we're close enough to enjoy a little Scotch. So, but again, Bill, great insight today, obviously on the Carrier front and also on the Scotch front. Whatever I have talked to you about Scotch in the past, you've definitely taken that and run with it. Your knowledge is vast and growing. So we will always discuss Scotch on these calls. We definitely appreciate the time on that as well.
Yeah, I think that maybe you should require all your guests to discuss squash.
I might. And squash, we can do that sometime too. If I ever get into playing squash, we'll do that one as well. But
just a note for viewers, the British Open's happening right now for
tennis?
squash.
Is this tennis? What are we? Oh, squash. Okay,
squash. Yeah, it's Hull, England.
I would definitely recommend if you're interested in that, follow Bill on Twitter. It is BillHo888. He is constantly updating any sort of squash information that you want. I try to follow it. I don't know what he's talking about. But if you're into squash, BillHo888 on Twitter, you can check out what he's got going on there.
And for Meyer-Dan, he rarely talks about his hobby, but he is a hardcore cyclist who spends thousands of dollars on bikes.
Whatever I don't spend on Scotch, I spend on bikes. So that's kind of my two vices. But yes, that's true. So, but again, Bill, appreciate the insight today. Always great to talk with you, and hopefully we can do this again soon as well.
Sure. Great.
Well, again, everyone, thanks for joining us on this week's Care Wrap, and make sure to check us out again next week. Thanks for watching.
Bye all.